And greetings, my friend. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Simplifying Fitness by taking a fundamental approach to diet and exercise to help you be fit and live free. I'm Matt Schifferly, and today we're taking an honest, kind of philosophical look at why so much of the advices out there for internet, social media, and so forth is basically kind of almost more like a wild guessing game as to figuring out exactly what is right for you. And it makes sense why so much of it is based on assumptions because, well, even if I make a program or a dietary approach, I don't know you. And people are different. Yes, fundamentally, we're all the same. We all lose weight and build muscle and improve performance for the same fundamental reasons. But how we go about doing that, as far as your particular best habits and diet and exercise behaviors and stuff, is gonna be different for everybody. And what's more, it's going to change what's better for you now, as opposed to what might be better for you next week, next month, and even next year. But don't forget that a fundamental approach to fitness teaches us that your results don't come from what kind of diet program you're following or what kind of workouts or things like that. It doesn't really matter that much if you're doing pull downs versus pull-ups or high volume or low volume or high carb or intermittent fasting. That stuff is just kind of more the superficial window dressing that, yes, it does matter, but not necessarily in the ways you think. And that's because a fundamental approach to fitness teaches us that your destiny of how well you get in shape and maintain your results determined by how well you can influence the three fundamental processes of fitness. You've got the process of physical exercise, which is a stimulus followed by adaptation, the process of dietary support, which is consumption followed by expenditure, and then the process of emotional drive or motivation, which is perceived benefits to perceived costs. Those three processes are what are governing your fate. And your ability to get and maintain the results you want don't come from what kind of diet or workout program you follow, but how well you can influence those processes. And to help you understand how to do that, we have the three fundamental objectives. The process of physical conditioning is basically a stimulus followed by adaptation. So therefore, the objective with that is train to stimulate. What kind of a stimulus are you trying to create in your training and your workouts? And then you can do whatever diet or whatever workouts, whatever habits you like that are going to give you the best chance of creating that stimulus. The objective with a healthy diet is eat to satisfy. You've got four fundamental appetites: hunger, metabolic support, nutritional support, and hedonic support. The best you can handle or satisfy those four appetites, the better your diet's going to be. And then finally, we have the process of emotional drive and motivation. Basically, that's based on perceived benefits to perceived costs. And that's different for everybody. Some people see the gym as a perceived benefit. Some people see it as a very high perceived cost. So it's really about choosing whatever diet and exercise and lifestyle behaviors give you the most benefit, perceived benefits, to the lowest perceived cost possible to have the biggest ability for you to eat to satisfy and train to stimulate. And again, the ways that you can do that are going to be different for everybody, and they're also going to change for everybody over time. And more importantly, the way that you can do that is based largely on your feedback, meaning that when we're trying to achieve these objectives, it's like trying to hit a target that's constantly moving that only you can see. And as a result, much of the advice out there on social media and the internet and things like that, they can't see your objective or their target. They're not aware of how well you're doing it. So a lot of the advices out there are not about what you actually have to do, but rather what direction you have to head into. You know, a lot of people, oh, you want to build muscle. Okay, you need to work out harder and you work out more and you need to eat a lot more calories and you need to eat a lot more protein. Oh, you're trying to lose weight. You need to eat less. You need to eat less processed food. You need to eat less sugar and less carbs and less meat and less. Oh, you're trying to get better results. Okay, you need to do things that are just harder. Oh, wake up at 5 a.m. to work out. Great, that's harder. That means it's more effective. Oh, waking up at 5 a.m. and going for a run because you hate running, right? So if you hate it, that must be the thing you have to do. So that means that if it's harder and it's more higher cost, then that's the thing you have to do. Harder. But there's a very big risk and a huge problem that comes from these approaches because of a simple thing called hormesis. Hormesis basically states that a certain amount of something will produce the complete opposite effect of a different amount of that very same thing. We see this sort of thing all the time in fitness. When I started to get in shape, all I could do, because I didn't know what I was doing, was just push-ups. And initially those push-ups were great. I felt great. Energy through the roof. I got stronger. I felt amazing. Everything was good, good, good. And so I thought, well, if some is good, then more is always better. So I just kept tacking on more push-ups and more sets and more workouts. And I went from doing push-ups once a day for 20, 30 push-ups to 4 times a day, 200 to 300 push-ups at a time. And before too long, I was weaker and I was irritable and I was cranky and I hated it. And everything that was positive about my push-up routine went completely the opposite direction, even though I was still doing push-ups. So these advices that are out there, telling you more, or less, or harder, are basically always running the risk of getting closer maybe to that objective and then completely blowing past it. And the only person in the world who can figure out how much you really need to do something is you. So the best compass needle we have moving forward is to always remember that this whole diet and exercise thing is supposed to be, on the whole, a positive experience. Exercise is supposed to feel good. Yes, it's going to be challenging and a little uncomfortable and stuff, but it's supposed to be a good thing. Same thing with diet. The chronic hunger and cravings and irritability and guilt and anxiousness of food, these are signs of bad diet. They're a sign that you're not adequately feeding your appetites. But we hear again that harder is the way to go. So we just keep pressing on in a certain direction, not realizing that you passed your objective 50 miles back and you're going the wrong way. So let your compass be your experience. If you cut back on sugar and start doing push-ups and you start feeling stronger and looking better and feeling better, good, you're on the right track. But if you start getting sore joints, you're losing motivation, you're getting cranky and you're starting to really crave some bread and you just can't seem to get your mind off of, God, all I want is, some pasta or some carbs, you're probably taking things a little too far. Back off a little bit and don't let the fear mongering out there about people saying you've got to always be doing less or always be doing more scare you, because it's simply not how fitness works. Your ability to get the results you want doesn't depend on how few carbs or sugar you can eat or how many push-ups you can force yourself to do. It's how well you can achieve those 3 fundamental objectives. And some is gonna be good, but not too much in either direction. And the more you hit those objectives, the better the results are gonna be with as little negative consequences as possible. So there you go, your Philosophy Friday. I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you very much for watching and listening. I got a link down below to all RDP resources if you want to deep dive a little bit more, including any sort of books, equipment resources, and so forth that I always recommend for grind style calisthenics. Let me know if you have questions down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Be fit and live free.